In Titus 2, older women are commanded to teach what is good so they can help younger women love their husbands and children. On today's show, you'll hear from older women who will share timeless, relevant biblical wisdom and personal, profound life experiences to help answer your questions and teach what God says is good so you can be the wife and mother you were created to be. Welcome to another episode of Older Women Likewise.
The only thing better than singing is more singing. Ella Fitzgerald is credited with that quote. On the less confident side of that, a hearing impaired friend of mine, the late Steve Watts, said, "If you want to break up a church fast, have me lead singing." Welcome to part 2 of Fine-Tuning Our Singing. I'm Colleen O'Steen, and in this session, we'll discuss the mechanics of singing, ways to improve personal singing, and pitfalls to avoid. Joining me are Stephanie Massey, a former voice and piano teacher with a bachelor's degree in music and vocal performance, with a minor in music theory and vocal pedagogy, and Julie Estes, a former band director with a bachelor's degree in music education and a master's degree in flute performance. It's good to have both of you with us. Let's start with one of the many scriptures teaching us to sing, and then move on to practical ways to apply that. Colossians 3:16 reads, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom, teaching and admonishing one another in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing with grace in your hearts to the Lord." So as we begin, as we move from part 1, which we already had, which already aired, and now just going kind of looking at some of the things we went over there. Should we care about how we sing? Does it matter if we try to develop ourselves in this way? Julie, what do you say?
Absolutely. It matters. You know, the way that we approach it is, I think, the most important aspect of it. We want to do our best for the Lord, no matter what it is we're doing, whether it's singing or something else, some other part of worship. We want to do our best. And so it absolutely matters how we approach it and how we feel about it. He's not looking for perfect singers. He just wants our best effort. He wants us to edify each other, to praise him. And if we've done that, we've done our job.
Yeah, and I think improving our singing, it's not about showing off at all. It's about ensuring that we are, like Julie said, we're praising God and teaching and admonishing one another with everything we have in us. And, not everybody has the same physical ability, and we're not all going to sound the same. God didn't make our vocal cords and everything about us the same, but we still should want to praise him and give him our best at all times.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to move on to the mechanics of singing and ways to improve personal singing. Let's take a look at the 6 basic components of singing. Stephanie, I'll let you lead the way, and Julie chime in as we learn ways to improve personal singing. Something I really would like to do myself. Just informally, Stephanie has given me some little ideas about things I can do, and I can tell a big difference. And I don't always remember to do them, but it does make a big difference. So, Stephanie?
All right. So there are 6 basic components of singing, but one thing I want to say before we get started is that the things that we're going to talk about tonight, these are not things that you do while you're at worship. These are things that you are going to work on at home if you want to improve your vocal skills. These are things that you can practice daily, weekly, however frequently you choose to practice them, but practice them at home. And the more frequently you do these exercises and you think on these things and practice them, the more automatic it will become, so that as you are worshiping and praising God, then you are putting these things into practice and giving him the very best you have to offer at the time. But please do not try to implement these while you are at worship. This is a thing to be done at home, separate from worship. So the 6 basic components of singing are breath support, posture, pitch, range, resonance, and diction, which is enunciation. So we're going to talk a little bit about each one of those. Breath support is a controlled, steady release of air from your lungs, managed by the diaphragm and core muscles. So when you have a diaphragm at the base of your rib cage, and that diaphragm will push down when you inhale and your lungs fill up, and we'll talk about that here more in just a few minutes. And then you're going to slowly release that air back. And that's controlled release of air back is what keeps a strong, stable vocal tone while you're singing. It also reduces strain on your voice and breathiness, real light, airy sound that some of us have, especially on high notes and long phrases. It helps you stay in tune with volume and just a good quality of sound and phrasing. So there's a couple of practical exercises we can do. The first thing you want to do is learn how to take a deep breath. So you're going to sit with your shoulders back, rolled back, so that you have lots of space in your rib cage. And then your belly is going to poke out when you sing. You're not going to raise your shoulders, because a lot of people, when they take a deep breath, you'll take a deep breath and they go, and their shoulders up. But that doesn't get you enough air to be able to sing. So when you take a deep breath, your shoulders are going to stay down, and you put your hand on your belly, and your belly is going to stick out. And what that is that diaphragm pushing down and filling up your lungs. So if you want to put your hand on your belly and take a deep breath, you can feel that belly stick out, and you can physically feel your lungs fill up with air. So when you're singing, you want to practice keeping your shoulders still and making sure that your belly is what's poking out when you're singing. And then there's a couple exercises. One is a buzzing. And so not everybody can buzz, but you go, so you can hum a tune and buzz it. So like, let's just say Jesus Loves Me. You just sing it that way. What you're going to find is it's hard to sing a full phrase or full sentence of a song while you're buzzing, because it takes a lot of air. So, but as much air as it takes to buzz is as much air as it takes to sing with good tone quality. So that's one trick.
What does buzzing do for you? Why would you buzz? Is that to?
Oh, buzzing! I buzz all the time. I buzz too. Like when I was learning songs in college, I would buzz my songs, and then I would sing them to make sure I had enough breath support in there. And it forces you to use that slow release of air so that you have enough breath through the whole phrase that you need to sing. So
it gives you resistance, something to blow against. It's resistance to blow against.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would that get you kind of, could you say that's kind of getting you in shape? You said breath support. Does that build strength or just make you conscious of?
Makes you conscious of it. Yeah. Breath support is what we call, what we say when we mean you have enough air to support so I'm going to get technical here for just a second. Your vocal cords they beat against each other when they make sound. So as the air comes through them, they beat against each other. And when they're short and fat, it's a lower sound. And when it's long and thin, it's a higher sound. So you have to have enough air to make those vocal cords beat through. And then we're going to talk about resonance, and that's the cavity inside your mouth, what happens in there. But if you don't have enough air, all of those pieces don't work well together.
So for taking that breath, Stephanie, something that we do in our flute lessons, if I have someone that they can't feel that at the diaphragm, I make them lay on the ground.
Yes.
And I'll
lay on their belly.
Yeah. I'll lay their flute across their belly.
Uh-huh.
And I want to see your flute move. And they have to get that breath so that we can see the flute rise up in the air and come down on their belly, because sometimes it's hard when you're standing or sitting up to feel it go out. You want to feel it go down.
Right.
And it needs to go out. And so doing that, there's only one way to go, is up.
Yes. And what's funny is when you sleep, that's how you breathe, is from your diaphragm, from your belly. Your shoulders don't move when you sleep. Naturally, that's how you breathe. But we're not used to doing that. We usually take shallow breaths when we speak. We don't tend to take deep breaths when we speak like that. So yeah, when you're singing at home, just keep one hand on your belly and be conscious that every time you take a breath, it needs to be a deep breath, and your belly needs to be what pokes out every time you take a breath.
Okay, well, I've been doing that wrong. So
So there's another thing you can do, and there's a hissing exercise. So you can take a deep breath, make sure your belly pokes out, and then hiss. So, which what that does is it slowly releases the air. And then you can count in your head how long it takes before you run out of air. Let's say you get to 20. Well, then the next time you do it, you want to try to get to 22. And the next time you do it, you want to try to get to 24. So your point is you're trying to extend that breath control that you have. And it just takes some practice. So let's see. Then the next thing I'll talk about is posture. So when you sing, you can't be slumped over. Don't cross your legs. Put both feet on the ground and sit up straight with your shoulders rolled back. And that way your chest has the most space in there so that you can fill it up with air. Julie, do you have anything else about posture?
No, I just said that's a tough one. Not being able to cross your legs.
Yes. Yeah, because we sit with our legs crossed, and especially, during services. And so you have to think to put both feet on the ground when you're singing. If you sing with your legs crossed, you can still sing. You just don't have as good breath support.
Well, a better option if you really don't want them both on the floor is to cross your ankles.
Yes.
Rather than your legs. If you just really want to do a ladylike thing, which I think etiquette wise, technically you're supposed to cross your ankles, not your knees anyway.
Yeah.
Do either of you know anything about whether being in good physical condition, like running and doing cardio, if that helps your singing? Because I suspect that mine is better than it was when I was not in as good a shape.
I don't know any studies. I've never looked at it, but I would assume that would be the case. Because you have created habits of taking deep breaths and being able to control that.
I think you're right. It's more about the habit than it is about it making your lungs larger or anything like that they hold more capacity. I think it's more about the habit of filling it up, as I like to say, all the way to your toes.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Well, as you get older, your muscles are not, if you don't keep them up, they'll go away. So there are muscles all in here doing all that work. And I just wonder if that has anything to do with it, but I'll have to look that up, I guess.
To look that up. So another thing is pitch and ear training. So this is hard because some people don't have a lot of trouble with pitch, and some people have a whole lot of trouble with pitch. It is something that you can learn. I had a student that could not sing on pitch at all when she first came to me. And when she left a few years later from voice lessons, she was not only singing on pitch, but she ended up going to school for music, vocal music. So it is something that can be learned. It is not easy to learn. It takes a lot of patience and a lot of time. And one thing you can do to practice is practice matching pitch. So hear a pitch and then listen and try to match that pitch. And it seems very elementary and simple, but if you're struggling to match pitch, then it's just something you have to train your ear to do. And then you just adjust. If you're a little bit lower, you try to come up a little bit higher until you sing it, and then do it again. And you just do it over and over, and you train your ear to hear that pitch and match that pitch.
Does someone else have to tell you, or can you?
I think usually someone has to tell you, because I'm not sure that everyone initially can tell that they're higher or lower. But with my experience, my student that came in, it took some time. It took a lot of time, and she could match a lot of pitches, and then some pitches would be sharp or flat significantly. And but we were able to get enough breath support behind them and for her to listen and think about it. And we do things like, if you're flat, you raise your eyebrows. if you're low, a little too low, if you'll raise your eyebrows, sometimes it helps bring that pitch up. There's some physical things like that you can do. Usually people are flat more than they're sharp. And the reason is for that, a lot of times, is breath control. Because if you do not have enough air going through, then it's gonna make the pitch be flat. And that's the same thing with instruments as well.
I was about to say, pretty much everything you're saying jives with what I'm familiar with. I do wonder, would a tuner, being an instrumentalist, would a tuner help? I know my son plays trombone, and so when he was first learning a lot of the pitches, I would just pull out my tuner and say, hey, you're playing an E flat, bring that slide in. And
I would say a tuner would help. Yes. And nowadays we have the phones. I'm sure there's tuners on the phones.
Oh, yeah.
Probably a tuner app out there that you could tune, and just listen to the pitch, match it. If it says you're low, then raise your eyebrows, think a little bit higher, and try to match that pitch again. If it says you're too high, think about lowering that pitch a little bit and on tuners, it'll tell you when you're perfectly in tune, and it's kind of satisfying to see that. So that will give you, I think a tuner would be a great idea, Julie.
I think a lot of people probably wouldn't even know that they're off if you don't have
right. Yeah, unless someone tells them.
Yeah. Okay.
And let's see. Another thing about pitch and ear training is don't try to stand out. So if you hear someone near you that's not on pitch, don't try to be their guide and stand out for them. That's not the time to do that. I've been around people that's happened, and but that, during worship, that's the time between you and God. So all the stuff I said earlier, all the things that we're talking about today are outside of services. Let's see, range. So this is a big one. Range is how high or low you sing, and there's a chest voice and a head voice. And a chest voice is your natural lower register, so it's around your speaking voice. So if you're a male, it would be very low. If you're a female, typically it's lower, like my speaking voice now. And then it's generally louder. So if you sing in a chest voice, it feels more confident and loud when you're singing. We tend to push a chest voice, which causes vocal fatigue. Your head voice is a much lighter sound. When I say breathy sound, it's not as strong as a chest voice sound. And head voices require increased airflow and space inside of your mouth in order to improve your tone and volume.
So will you touch on with that when we have a singing,
mm-hmm.
and maybe a Sunday night singing or a community singing, or you know what I mean, and you get to the end of it and you're getting hoarse and it's hard to make it all the way to the end of the hour and a half that you're singing, do you suggest, well, obviously backing off a little is probably the number one, I would assume, suggestion. But would you suggest jumping between alto and soprano if you're able, to try to preserve different parts of it? Or what's your advice on that?
The biggest thing is it's usually you're hoarse because you pushed too much earlier. And we push so much because it is very exciting and energetic when we're singing as a congregation. And I think it lends to us wanting to sing out, which is exactly what we should do. But if you don't sing out with the proper breath support, then it will cause vocal fatigue. But I do think that you could definitely switch from soprano to alto if, say, your lower voice has still got some oomph left in it and your upper voice doesn't. Or if your lower voice, for me, when we have long singings, because I'm a soprano, my lower register is my weaker register. And so it will go out before my upper register goes out. And so I tend to have a hard time hitting some of the lower notes. If we have songs that go from high to low, don't overthink it. Sing what you can. The point is, in those long singings too, is to make sure we're still singing to God, and not worry about when your voice cuts out so much. But typically it's because you have pushed too much on the front end and done some damage to the vocal cords, got them all irritated and thicker.
So what about the difference between using your air and pushing?
Okay, so using your air, when you push, it's just when I say push, I mean you're just using raw, just trying to make it loud. When we talked about breath support, we talked about that slow release, consistent release of air. And that's what you want when you sing. You want that slow, consistent release of air throughout, so that it's not such a forced sound. So I did want to say this. There is naturally in our voices, there is a clear break between a chest voice and a head voice. So when you're singing, a lot of times you'll hear where I'm singing really strong and then I flip over into this really light and airy sound. And a lot of people think when that happens, well, I'm not a soprano, I'm an alto because I can't sing those high notes. And that's not necessarily true. What it means is you haven't learned how to blend those two, head voice and chest voice together. But that happens with backing off of your chest voice, singing it lighter, and keeping that constant airflow as you go up into the higher voice. And then from higher voice coming down into the lower voice. And you can learn to blend that as well, so that there's not that break. Do y'all know what I'm talking about with the break? Do either one of y'all have a break in your voice?
I do. Is that the head voice and chest voice? You've used that with me before, but that was new to me. I didn't really get that. That's not a common term. That's not the head voice is not what I would have called falsetto.
It's not falsetto, but it feels like it if it's not been blended into the chest voice. It does feel like a falsetto because it's a lot lighter and you can almost physically feel your self switch into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
When I was in college, I took voice lessons in order to play my flute better because it is very closely related. And so specifically for flute, I took voice. And I went in and I told her, I said, well, I'm an alto. And she said, no, you're not. And it was for that same reason, because when it flipped up into my higher notes, that was not where my voice was strong. That was not where I felt confident. So I just thought I wasn't a soprano. But she said, no, you're a second soprano. And so, and it's still, I still struggle with it. But yeah, there's a definite line there where you think is your limit. And that's not necessarily true.
Yeah. So one thing, go ahead.
Before we move on, could you show us, just sing some notes that are your head voice and your chest voice, so we know what you're talking about? Okay.
So I personally don't have a break anymore, but I can kind of give you an idea of what it would sound like. But I'm not going to be able to go up to a break and then flip into a head voice. But let's say you sing do, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Like there'll be a definite, a strong one and then a lighter one. Okay. For me, because I went through many years of training, I don't have that break anymore. So mine just goes seamlessly from chest to head voice, and there's not a light and a strong side anymore. They're all the same. But typically, so it's hard for me to demonstrate chest voice versus head voice.
It's very mellow. You have a very mellow sound. I like that.
So we want to talk about sound. The resonance is where we're going to get that, and that's the next thing up. So the way your vocal cords work, I explained that a little bit. You've got those look like rubber. They're like rubber bands, and they stretch and they come down. So when they're together, they're fatter, and then they pull tighter and they're long and skinnier. And when they're pulled tighter and they're long and skinnier, then they're higher. That's when the higher notes happen. But this raw sound that your vocal cords produce comes up through your air-filled cavities, which is your throat, your mouth, and even your nasal passages right here. All of that acts as resonators, which creates your tone, and it will almost vibrate in here. All these bones and joints that you have in your mouth will, when you're singing and come up through, if you really pay attention, you can feel just almost a little bit of vibration in there. I was sick when we had our last singing, and I did not know I was sick. My ears were ringing, but I didn't have anything else. But by the time we got through the first 3 songs, I had to go blow my nose because it had all come loose. So it does vibrate right here. But the air-filled cavities that you have right there, you want to fill that space with the waves that your voice is making. And so to do that, I'm going to make all kinds of faces, and I'm going to use my fingers in all kinds of ways. So just excuse me, but you're going to open your mouth and open the front of your mouth, and you want to almost yawn. So, and then you can feel that air come in the back of your throat when you breathe in, and your jaw almost feels like it unhinges if you're not used to opening your mouth that far. And what you want to do is when you're singing, you want to open your mouth and you want to put the tip of your tongue on the back of your bottom teeth, right back here. And that keeps the sound more forward, because a lot of times when we get tight and tired, it's because we're pulling our tongue in the back of our mouth and keeping it really tight. And that does not produce a good quality tone. So you want to keep the tip of your tongue on the back of your teeth.
Okay.
Right here. So let's sing do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And you're going to move your mouth very big and make sure that your mouth is, your jaw is dropping and that tip of the tongue stays on the back of your teeth. That is going to be something that's going to take work. Okay. Is to make sure you're opening your mouth and putting the tip of your tongue on the back of your teeth. I was talking to Julie about it just a few weeks ago and telling her, as I was speaking, I realized I still do that in my speaking voice. I still keep the tip of my tongue on the back of my teeth. It has become such a habit for me. So it can be a habit.
Is that what keeps people from, quote, singing through their nose?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, when you sing through your nose, you keep that cavity in your mouth closed more, and when you have less space, then it feels like all of this right here is where it's coming out at. So in order to get that nice open forward sound that everybody really does like to hear, is you've got to give your mouth, the cavity in your mouth, more space for all of that to resonate inside your mouth. It's a very complex little contraption here that God built for us. Mm-hmm. But it works beautifully.
Mm-hmm. Can you teach me how to sound like Whitney Houston?
Sure. I'm just kidding.
Just kidding. Has she had something special that other people don't have, right?
I'm not sure what like physically if she had anything special, but some people are just very gifted in different ways, and she was very gifted vocally for sure.
Yeah.
When you see those people sing, their mouths,
it's wide.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, any of the professional performers, if you watch them, they don't look funny when they're singing. We don't think they look funny, but when you really get to looking, their mouths are open, very wide and you're going to open them on all your vowels. So, let's see. Jesus loves me, this I know. So all of your vowels, your mouth is going to be dropping on them.
And you can say words with your tongue on the back of your teeth. You can say all your vowels that way.
Yes.
Other ones you can't.
Yes, correct. And of the consonants, we'll talk about how to do that in just a minute when we talk about diction, about how to clean up your diction when you sing. And the main time that your tongue moves in a different position is consonants. And when you do the consonants, we're going to do them in a very specific way when we sing. So you want to have when you sing, you sing your vowels. So Jesus loves me. Like, you don't sing the consonants. Those are just little things that happen at the end of each vowel.
Okay.
So
I like that. Okay.
So you don't sing consonants, but consonants and your diction is incredibly important, because without good diction and the consonants pronounced clearly, you can't understand the words. And there's nothing that I dislike more in a secular environment than to have someone singing that I can't understand what the words are. I don't want to have to guess. So diction is a very important part of it. But yes, you sing the vowels. So as you're singing, you want to make sure on all those vowels that your jaw is dropped and your tip of your tongue is on the back of your teeth. And you almost want to think about the sound being right here in front. And you can physically think about that with the tip of your tongue on the back of your teeth and your mouth open, and you will hear a difference in the sound of your tone.
Okay.
So diction, I was talking about that for just a second. So the diction is clear, precise words. So when we use good diction, we said sing vowels, but one thing you're going to do is put the consonant of if you've got two words, put the consonant of the previous word on the next word. So I'm going to give you an example. So one thing I always did with my students was we did the phrase, big fat bullfrog, big fat bullfrog. And this exercise makes you move your mouth. And I always told them that you're going to feel funny and you're going to feel like it looks funny. But when you sing, it does not look or sound funny. It sounds correct. But big fat, so between big and fat, you're going to put that G on the F. So you're going to hold the vowel, and then you're going to put the G on the F. So big fat, big fat. And then
big fat.
Mm-hmm. And then between fat and bull, you're going to be to buh. So big fat to bullfrog.
Big fat. Big fat to bull frog.
Bullfrog. La-frog. So you're going to put the L on the F, so la-frog. It's a totally different way of thinking about speech. It's not the same as speaking. We do not speak the way we sing. We just don't. That in order to have the space for the vowels that you need, you do not speak the way that you sing. So when you use the phrase big fat bullfrog, big fat bullfrog, and when you do it quick, big fat bullfrog, and it sounds like big fat bullfrog, but the way I would speak it if I were talking is big fat bullfrog, which I lay off a lot of those consonants when I speak.
Yes.
But when I sing, because you sing your vowels, in order to get clear understanding by your audience, you put the consonants, the end of the first word, on the beginning of the second word.
Okay.
Anyway.
I can work on that.
Yeah.
So is that all? Okay. So anything else that we're?
I think that's a lot of it. Do you
Yeah.
have any questions about any of that?
I have a lot of questions. I'll have to try some of these things. What makes your voice crack? Especially like I think if you're a soprano, what makes that happen?
A lot of it's lack of breath support. If it cracks in the way upper registers, you're just getting to the edge of your vocal range. But most of the time when it cracks, it's because you are lacking breath support.
Okay.
So if you do that buzzing exercise on those points where your voice is cracking in a song, if you do that buzzing one where you buzz the melody of it,
okay,
and then sing it, I bet your voice won't crack.
Okay. I'll have to try that. What are some pitfalls to avoid when it comes to, singing?
Okay, so I'd say the first one is just don't push. Don't try to be super loud. That gets you vocal fatigue. And the other thing, which I did not obey before I came to teach this, is don't talk a lot when you're planning to sing. Because I'm a little raspy this evening, but yes. So if you're going to do some singing, especially like for a hour and a half singing night, kind of be aware of that and try not to talk or yell at the dog or anything like that.
Go to a football game. Okay.
And then another one we talked a little bit about is a tight throat. And a lot of times you can feel it when you physically feel it when you have a tight throat. It feels very tense right in here. And one thing you can do for that is to yawn.
Okay.
And it just can't help but relax all those muscles when you do a big yawn. And then we did talk about the tip of your tongue on the back of your teeth. That helps when you have a tight throat as well. So
if you yawn, you probably don't let the preacher see you yawning.
Well, you're not supposed to be doing this during. You're supposed to be doing this at home. So,
okay.
Yeah, those are some of the bigger ones. And I think one of the most important things is when you're singing in a congregation, it's not a solo. There are other singers around you, and don't try to overpower them. This is the time to give God your best, but to do it in a way that encourages and edifies those around you and gives God the praise and glory that he deserves, and taking all the attention off of yourself.
Yeah, I think using a lot of the tips that you've given us also can help us to convey the message of the song better. If it is solemn and sad, if it is joyful and loud, and we can use the things that you just told us to change the way we use our voice in different songs to convey that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've told me the opening up my throat and making my, if you look, I think you said if you look like a frog, that's good.
Yes.
And I can tell a big difference when I'm singing. I forget to do that, and then I'll go, "Oh, Stephanie said," and it's at least a little more mellow.
Yes.
I guess that's how I would describe it. A more mellow,
it changes the tone quality of your voice depending on how much space you have in your mouth and where your tongue placement is and how much airflow. It's really those three things. If you can get the airflow, the space, and your tongue on the back of the tip of your teeth, you will hear a big difference in the tongue quality.
Okay. Anything else, Julie, on this? Okay. Well, Stephanie and Julie, I've learned a lot in this session. Thanks for providing this insight. We'll have one more episode in this series on singing. So we'll wrap up for now, and we will see you next time.